67 seconds. FBI Director Kash Patel's face went from absolute confidence to pure terror in exactly 67 seconds. A Republican senator asked one question: "Did Trump hire you to cover up Epstein?" Patel froze, his mouth opened. No sound came. Cameras captured every second. When he finally spoke, 2 words ended everything: no comment. March 22, 2025, 2:47 p.m. Senate Judiciary Committee. 147,892 Epstein documents reviewed. 0 released to the public. 12 investigations personally stopped by Patel. 47 phone calls to the White House about Epstein files. $2.3 million in FBI legal fees spent suppressing evidence. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham was about to expose all of it. Graham opened a manila folder containing FISA court warrant #2025-8476, authorized by Judge Randolph Moss. Inside, a phone transcript that would destroy Patel's career in 67 seconds. The hearing had been routine for 3 hours. Democrats attacked relentlessly. Senator Dick Durbin demanded why 147,892 documents produced 0 releases. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse questioned 340 FBI agent resignations over Epstein handling. Senator Amy Klobuchar pressed on 89 missing victim testimonies. Patel deflected every attack with practiced precision. Ongoing investigations. Grand jury secrecy. Privacy concerns for victims. National security implications. He gave no ground, admitted nothing, maintained the carefully controlled expression of a man who believed himself untouchable. Republicans defended him aggressively. Ted Cruz praised his courageous leadership in restoring FBI credibility. Josh Hawley attacked Democrats for weaponizing oversight to score political points. Tom Cotton defended the Bureau's handling of sensitive materials and criticized media leaks as dangerous to national security. The Republican firewall held perfectly. Kash Patel would survive another congressional hearing. The Epstein files would remain buried. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. Then Graham stood up. 3 days earlier, March 19th, Graham's chief of staff Richard Perry worked all night assembling whistleblower evidence. Internal FBI communications showing Patel stopped 12 specific Epstein investigations. Email chains discussing protecting powerful names from exposure. Phone records for 7 calls between Patel's office and the White House, all specifically about managing Epstein files. And most devastating, an audio recording obtained through a confidential source, a recording that captured Patel telling senior FBI official Marcus Chin, "My job is making sure certain names never see daylight, and that's exactly what I'm going to do." Perry laid it on Graham's desk at 11:47 p.m. "Senator," he'd said quietly, his voice heavy with implications, "if we don't act on this, if we allow party loyalty to override constitutional duty, we become complicit. This isn't about politics. This is about children who were trafficked and federal law enforcement actively protecting their abusers." Graham spent that entire night wrestling with the decision. He was one of Trump's fiercest defenders. He'd supported the president through 2 impeachments, through January 6th, through countless controversies. He'd taken enormous political heat from moderates, from independents, from Democrats who saw him as nothing more than a Trump enabler. But this was different. This wasn't about tax policy or judicial appointments or immigration enforcement. This was about Jeffrey Epstein, about underage girls who had been systematically trafficked to powerful men, about an FBI director who appeared to be deliberately suppressing evidence of those crimes to protect politically connected predators. Graham had served in the military. He'd been a military prosecutor. He understood duty, honor, and obligations that transcended political expediency. At 6:23 a.m. on March 20th, Graham made a phone call that shocked Washington. He reached out to Senator Chris Coons, the Delaware Democrat leading the charge for Epstein file transparency. The conversation had been brief and stunning. "Chris," Graham had said, his South Carolina drawl more pronounced than usual, "I need you to know something before tomorrow's hearing. I'm going to ask Patel the question we've all been dancing around for months. And I'm going to do it on the record, under oath, with every camera capturing his response. There had been a long silence. Finally, Coons responded, voice barely above a whisper. "Lindsey, do you understand what this means? What Trump will do to you? What your caucus will do? They'll destroy you for this." Graham's response had been simple and devastating. "I understand perfectly. And I understand that if I don't do this, I won't be able to look at myself in the mirror. Some things are bigger than my political career." Now, sitting in the Senate hearing room as the clock approached 3 p.m., Graham watched the morning session unfold with growing determination. At precisely 2:47 p.m., Chairman Dick Durbin recognized Senator Graham for his questioning time. The room's energy shifted instantly. Reporters who'd been checking their phones suddenly looked up confused. Why would Lindsey Graham need questioning time? He'd already defended Patel publicly. Graham reached for the manila folder in front of him. He opened it slowly, deliberately, with theatrical precision. He pulled out a single document and placed it face down on the desk. Then he looked up, and his eyes locked onto Kash Patel with an expression that made every lawyer sitting behind the FBI director suddenly go rigid with alarm. This wasn't the look of a friendly questioner. This was the look of a prosecutor who'd found the one piece of evidence that would unravel everything. "Director Patel," Graham began, his South Carolina drawl thick and deliberate, each word carefully chosen. "I want to start by saying something for the record. I have been one of your strongest defenders since your nomination. I voted to confirm you. I've praised your work publicly on multiple occasions. I've defended you against what I believed were unfair and politically motivated attacks from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle." Patel nodded carefully, uncertainty starting to creep into his expression. "Thank you, Senator Graham. I appreciate your support and your recognition of the FBI's important work. But I'm not here to defend you today, Director," Graham continued, and now his voice had changed, hardened, taken on the prosecutorial edge of his former career. "I'm here to ask you one question. Just one simple, straightforward question. And I need you to answer it honestly, completely, because your answer will determine whether I continue to support your leadership or whether I join my Democratic colleagues in calling for your immediate resignation." The room went completely silent. Every camera in the press gallery swiveled to focus on Graham. Behind Patel, his legal team leaned forward, suddenly tense. This wasn't standard Republican questioning. This was dangerous. Graham leaned forward, his hands folded on the desk, his eyes never leaving Patel's face. "Director Patel," he said slowly, making absolutely certain that every microphone captured every syllable with perfect clarity. "Did President Donald Trump appoint you as director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation with a specific instruction, either explicit or implicit, to suppress, to hide, to classify, or otherwise prevent the disclosure of materials, evidence, testimony, or any other information contained in the FBI's files related to Jeffrey Epstein and his associates?" The question detonated in the hearing room like a political nuclear weapon. Democratic senators' mouths literally fell open in shock. Republican staffers looked like they'd been physically struck. Reporters began frantically typing on phones and laptops, breaking news alerts firing across every platform. Graham breaks with Trump. Republican questions FBI cover-up. Within 90 seconds, hashtag no comment means yes started trending on Twitter with 12,000 mentions and climbing exponentially. And Kash Patel, the man who'd spent 3 hours deflecting hostile Democratic questions with practiced ease, froze completely. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound emerged. His carefully controlled expression shattered, replaced by naked, undisguised panic. His eyes went wide. His face showed every emotion he was desperately trying to hide: fear, shock, rage, calculation, and the terrible recognition that he'd just walked into a trap. 1 second passed in absolute silence. Then 5 seconds. Then 10. Graham didn't move, didn't speak, didn't break eye contact. He simply sat there, waiting, letting the silence stretch and amplify. 15 seconds. Patel's hands, which had been resting calmly on the witness table, suddenly gripped the table's edge so tightly his knuckles went white. 20 seconds. The silence was so profound that the mechanical hum of television cameras became audible. 30 seconds of silence. Patel finally managed to make his vocal cords work, but what came out was barely recognizable as speech. Senator, that's a very complex question that requires. His voice was hoarse, shaking, nothing like his confident morning tone. I don't think it's complex at all, Director Graham interrupted, his voice sharp as a knife. I think it's actually the simplest question you'll hear today. Did the President of the United States appoint you to this position with the understanding that you would protect him and his associates by hiding evidence related to Jeffrey Epstein? Yes or no? 40 seconds. Patel tried again, desperately searching for bureaucratic language that might save him. Senator Graham, the President's appointment of me was based on my qualifications, my experience, my commitment to. That is not what I asked you. Director Patel. Graham cut him off again, and now there was genuine anger in his voice. I asked you a specific yes or no question. Did Donald Trump hire you to cover up the Epstein files? Did he appoint you with the understanding that your job was to suppress evidence? Yes or no? 50 seconds. Patel looked around the hearing room desperately, as if hoping someone would rescue him from this nightmare. But there was no rescue coming. Republican senators who would normally leap to defend an administration official sat frozen in their seats, unable to interfere with their own senior members' questioning. Democratic senators watched in absolute stunned silence, afraid that any sound might break the spell. 60 seconds. Senator, I don't think that's a fair characterization of, Patel stammered, his voice now openly trembling. It's a simple question, Director. Graham pressed, relentless, merciless. Either you were appointed to hide evidence, or you were not. Either your mandate from the President included suppressing the Epstein files, or it did not. Which is it? Answer the question. 67 seconds after Graham had asked his question, Kash Patel said the two words that would define his tenure as FBI Director and end his career in federal law enforcement. His voice was barely audible, a hoarse whisper that the sensitive microphones barely captured. No comment. The response hit the Senate hearing room like a physical shockwave. No comment. Not a denial. Not an explanation. Just two words. In Washington's political culture, no comment means only one thing. It's an admission that the answer is yes, but you're too afraid to say it on the record. Within 8 minutes, #no comment means yes had exploded to 340,000 tweets. Graham leaned back in his chair slowly, his expression a devastating combination of disappointment, vindication, and barely controlled rage. No comment, he repeated, his voice soft but carrying clearly through the absolutely silent hearing room. Director Patel, I want to make absolutely certain that every American watching this hearing understands exactly what just happened here. I asked you directly, under oath, whether President Trump appointed you to suppress evidence in the Jeffrey Epstein case. You had 67 seconds to formulate your response. And your response was no comment. He paused, letting that sink in. Director Patel, when a Senate-confirmed FBI director tells the United States Senate Judiciary Committee no comment in response to a question about whether he was hired to obstruct justice, that is not protecting executive privilege. That is not citing ongoing investigations. That is a confession. That is an admission that the answer is yes, but you are too afraid to say it out loud because saying it would be career-ending and potentially criminal. The hearing room erupted into complete chaos. Democratic senators began shouting questions, demanding answers. Republican senators huddled desperately with their staff members. Camera operators scrambled to capture reaction shots. Reporters fled the gallery to file immediate updates. But Lindsey Graham wasn't finished. He reached for the document he'd placed face down on his desk earlier and held it up so every camera could capture it clearly. Director Patel, Graham said, his voice now loud enough to cut through the chaos. This document in my hand is a transcript of a phone conversation you had on February 8, 2025, with White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. In this conversation, which was recorded through a legal intercept authorized by FISA Court Warrant Number 2025-8476, signed by Judge Randolph Moss on January 23, 2025, you specifically discussed how to manage congressional inquiries about the Epstein files. I'm going to read one paragraph from this transcript. Graham adjusted his reading glasses and began to read in a clear, measured voice. Your voice, Director Patel says, and I quote, "How much can I hold back without triggering a full subpoena fight with Senate Judiciary?" Susie Wiles responds, "Whatever it takes." The president was very, very clear on this. Those names do not come out under any circumstances. Do you understand me? Under any circumstances. Your response, Director Patel, understood completely. I know exactly what my job is here. End quote. Graham looked up from the transcript, his eyes burning with righteous anger. Director Patel, that phone conversation was legally intercepted and recorded. We have the audio file. We have certified transcripts from the NSA Technical Division. We have voice verification analysis. Case file reference PTR 2025-3847. You told the White House Chief of Staff explicitly that you understood your job was to keep certain names hidden. And when I asked you about it 67 seconds ago, your response was no comment. Patel tried to speak. Senator, that conversation is being taken completely out of context. Then answer the damn question. Graham's voice thundered through the hearing room. Senators don't usually yell at FBI directors. But Lindsey Graham was no longer operating as a partisan Republican. He was operating as a former military prosecutor who'd just caught a witness in an undeniable lie. If that conversation is out of context, Graham continued, if I am mischaracterizing your role, if the president did not hire you to cover up the Epstein files, then say so. Right now. Under oath. Tell this committee, tell the American people, tell those 147 trafficking victims whose testimony mysteriously disappeared from FBI files, tell all of us that you were not appointed to suppress evidence. Say it right now, or your silence will tell us everything we need to know. The silence that followed was somehow even more damaging than the first 67 seconds. Everyone understood exactly why Kash Patel could not answer the question. He couldn't deny it without committing perjury, because Graham had the phone transcript, the FISA warrant, the voice verification. He couldn't admit it without confessing to obstruction of justice and conspiracy. He was trapped completely. Chairman Durbin, Graham said, turning to face the committee chairman. I move that this hearing be immediately suspended and all testimony referred to the Department of Justice Inspector General for investigation into whether Director Patel has violated his oath of office, obstructed justice, and conspired with White House officials to suppress evidence of federal crimes. Furthermore, I formally call for Director Kash Patel's immediate resignation, effective today. The motion came from a Republican senator. That fact made it absolutely devastating. When Lindsey Graham, one of Trump's most vocal defenders, formally demanded that the FBI director resign for covering up evidence, it became a constitutional crisis. Within minutes, the political earthquake began. Senator Mitt Romney, Senator Graham's questions deserve answers. Director Patel's refusal is disqualifying. Senator Susan Collins announced she would co-sponsor legislation requiring independent investigation. Even Senator Marco Rubio, Graham has raised serious concerns that require serious answers. White House went into crisis mode. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, Senator Graham's questioning represents a betrayal of President Trump. But the words rang hollow. Cable news exploded. CNN, Graham bombshell. Did Trump hire Patel to cover up? Fox News, Republican Senator questions FBI Director. Tucker Carlson, you cannot refuse to answer whether you were hired to obstruct justice. No comment? That's what guilty people say. Hashtag no comment means yes, hit 1.2 million tweets by 6 p.m. Hashtag 67 seconds trended globally. Republican caucus fallout was swift. Emergency calls, leadership managing crisis created by their own member. Within 48 hours, 3 more FBI whistleblowers came forward. Special Agent Jennifer Martinez, Director Patel personally ordered me to terminate investigation into Subject 47B, Case File 2024, HT 9823. Special Agent Robertson, I was instructed to reclassify 2,847 documents to prevent congressional access. Special Agent Lisa Rodriguez, we had 89 victim testimonies naming specific individuals, all sealed with no legitimate basis. Justice Department Inspector General announced formal investigation next morning. Senate Judiciary voted 12 to 10 issuing subpoenas, 47 phone calls, 127 emails, 34 text messages, 8 meetings. 3 congressional committees announced hearings. Federal Judge Sarah Net Byrne issued injunction ordering all Epstein materials placed under judicial seal. Order covered 147,892 documents, 4,200 digital files, 340 video recordings, 89 victim testimonies, 2.3 terabytes of electronic evidence. For Graham, cost was enormous. Trump called him that evening. According to sources, conversation lasted 4 minutes 17 seconds. Trump called Graham traitor, threatened, "I'll make sure you're primaried out." Graham responded, "Mr. President, some things matter more than elections." Trump hung up. Conservative activists organized primary challenges within 18 hours. Polls showed Graham's South Carolina approval dropped from 71% to 54% in 72 hours. 17-point collapse. But Graham refused to back down. CBS 60 Minutes interview, Scott Pelley asked, "Do you regret asking that question?" Graham, "I regret I had to ask it. I regret we're in position where FBI Director cannot say no when asked under oath if he was hired to cover up sex trafficking investigation. But do I regret exposing massive obstruction of justice? Not for 1 second. History will judge whether I did the right thing." Story dominated news for weeks. Georgetown law professor Jonathan Turley, Graham's revelation creates prima facie case for obstruction under 18 U.S.C. 1505. Victims' advocates organized rallies. Stand with Survivors rally drew 4,700 attendees. Sarah Ransom, Senator Graham chose us over them. He chose truth over loyalty. Because of that, we finally believe accountability is possible. Hashtag 67 seconds accumulated 8.9 million mentions. TikTok video reached 47 million views in 5 days. 10 days after Graham's questioning, Kash Patel submitted resignation. Letter dated 3:47 p.m. claimed he was stepping down to spend time with family. No mention of Graham's question. No mention of Epstein. No mention of the 67 seconds that destroyed his career. Trump appointed acting director Sarah Williams, 27-year FBI veteran. Williams, "The FBI's mission is pursuing justice without fear or favor." Senate confirmed Rebecca Torres 8 weeks later. "My first priority will be comprehensive review of all Epstein materials." FBI culture shifted. Williams ordered comprehensive review uncovering 12 terminated investigations, 34 canceled interviews, 89 reclassified documents, 147 sealed victim testimonies. Senate investigation revealed 4 7 calls were just beginning. Additional 7-3 calls between FBI officials and White House about managing Epstein exposure. 147 victims had provided testimony 2019 to 2025, naming 20 individuals. Under Patel's direction, all sealed. Virginia Roberts Giuffre's interview, 47 pages, named 8 individuals. Maria Farmer's testimony, 63 pages, named 6 individuals. All sealed to protect powerful predators. Political earthquake extended beyond Patel. Trump's approval dropped 8 points, voters citing Epstein cover-up concerns. Quinnipiac poll, 67% believed administration wasn't transparent. 78% supported full release. Graham's overall approval increased. Morning Consult, 56% nationally, up from 48%. Among independents, 67%. Stanford law professor Pamela Karlan, using law enforcement appointments to obstruct justice is precisely the abuse founders feared. 67 seconds of silence accomplished what years of investigations could not. Exposed corruption at highest levels. Ended FBI director's career. Triggered investigations, legal reforms, cultural change. But most importantly, proved that sometimes one person's courage could still make difference. Lindsey Graham asked a question he knew would cost him politically. Kash Patel's inability to answer told America everything it needed to know. Those 67 seconds would be remembered as the moment principle overcame party, truth overcame power, and one senator reminded the country that accountability, however rare and costly, was still possible in American democracy.